Hey everyone, it's Amanda with My Life My Way. Welcome back to TTC Tuesdays, and today we're talking about OPKs. So OPKs are ovulation prediction kits, and they're testing for the LH or the luteinizing hormone. And this hormone begins to peak about 36 hours before you actually ovulate, and it's what triggers your body to say, okay, we're pretty much done maturing this follicle. The LH hormone comes in, it finishes that maturation process, and is what actually causes the ovulation, just as it starts to drop at the very end. So because this hormone peaks about 36 hours before you ovulate, usually by the time that you get your first positive OPK, you're going to ovulate within about the next 24 hours, generally speaking. Studies have shown that LH level is actually correlated with ultrasound confirmation of ovulation as well, pretty much every single time. So that's really nice. They are very accurate, but they are they are the most expensive way to check for ovulation. There's lots of different brand names. There's Clear Blue, there's First Response, there are cheapy ones like Wanfos or BFP brands, that kind of stuff. You can pretty much buy them anywhere. For the stick test, you can buy them in any drugstore. The cheaper ones you have to buy online. But there are some limitations to them. False positives can occur. It's really common apparently in PCOS patients, from what I understand, not from what was in the Mayo Clinic Guide to Fertility and Conception. They just said false positives can occur, but some of the research that I've been doing separate from that says that PCOS women are more likely to see those false positives. And they can also have false negatives as well, which we'll talk about here in a little while. But so they can be a little bit deceiving, and they can sometimes be a little bit difficult to read as well, but they are very accurate. Most people begin testing as soon as it's early enough to figure that you might be ovulating. So for the average cycle, if you're about 28 days, most people will start testing about day 10, and then pee on an ovulation prediction kit every single day going forward from that. The actual time you take the OPK does not matter. The only times you'll see people testing specifically in the afternoon is because if you get your positive IUI in the afternoon, you'll end up doing your IUI the next morning in order to catch that ovulation. That's really the only time it actually matters. Doing it with first morning urine is totally fine. So is doing it in the afternoon. I usually do mine in the morning just because it's easier with the schedule that I run, because it's sometimes a little bit psychotic when you're working EMS to do a test in the afternoon. So I usually do one in the morning, and I actually use the cheaper tests until it starts getting a lot darker and it starts looking like I'm going to be ovulating, and then I'll start actually testing twice a day, and I'll use the more expensive sticks. I use Clear Blue, that's a personal preference, to just pinpoint that ovulation. If you're going to be testing in the afternoon though, make sure you have a couple hours worth of hold to make sure that there's enough hormone there that it actually gets the positive that it needs, rather than reading you a false negative. So it's one of the things to kind of pay attention to. All of them are very simple. Most of the time it's easier for me if I collect my urine in a cup rather than hold the urine in a stream. But you just dip the urine, or dip the stick into the urine, you hold it for whatever time it says on the box, and let it sit for whatever time it says on the box. Each brand is a little bit different for how long you hold and how long you wait. So be very careful when you're picking up a new brand, because they can be a little deceiving that way. And then how do you read them? So in a pregnancy test, there's a test line and a control line, and the control line has to show up. And in a pregnancy test, any line that shows up in the second line in your test line definitely means you've got a positive pregnancy test going on. Ovulation sticks are a little bit different. So the control line has to show up, and then in order for it to be positive, your test line actually has to be equal to or stronger than in color, or darker than the control line. So that's where it gets a little bit more difficult to read. It's not like that you can't see the test line, it's that there's a lot of concern every once in a while is this test line as darker than my control line? So it does get a little bit confusing. It's actually why I like the Clear Blue test. There's like an extra little sort of dark blue line that shows up at the very end. Sorry, I was doing this off camera. There's like a little dark line on the far side of the test line when I'm actually ovulating. And I don't have a positive just kind of hanging out around. If you're interested and want to know what it looks like, comment onto here, and I will throw you a picture next month when I get my next ovulation kit going. As for personal preferences with the ovulation protection kits, like I said, I use a BFP online cheapy brand I bought. They're carried, I think, through a company called Fairhaven. And then when I start getting close, I use the Clear Blues. The only reason I actually don't use First Response for me personally is because the first month we were doing IUI. Yeah, first month we were doing IUI. So I was being monitored. I was getting an ultrasound every 2 days. I was getting blood work every 2 days. I was doing an ovulation prediction kit every single day, twice a day. It's a lot of stuff going on. The day that I actually had my positive LH come back in blood work, I hadn't bothered to do a test that morning just because I knew I was going in for an ultrasound and a blood work. So I figured I'd just save myself the money for the OPK. And the blood work came back a couple hours later and said, you're absolutely ovulating, like we need to roll this right now. I'm like, okay, sounds good. We got everything on the go. And I had to wait 2 more hours to get in, so I took out all of my ovulation kits that I had hanging around. I was like, well, if this one's going to be the first definite positive, I'm going to do a test just so I know exactly what these sticks look like when they come up positive. Because up until that point, because I have PCOS, and I was not being medicated, sometimes they're a little bit tricky, right? Like I was saying earlier. And the First Response actually came out as a negative OPK, despite the fact that I was on a 3-hour hold, and knew I was absolutely ovulating. And it was a fairly strong ovulation because I was being medicated at the time. And both the Clear Blue and my Chibi stick came back positive. So I was a little disappointed in the First Response. They used to be like my favorite brand of sort of like a go-to, and then in the last, that sort of killed me for OPKs for them. I've actually never bought another box. And they've gotten a lot of false positives on pregnancy tests lately around this area, like in Canada. So if, like a few people that I've been following, and that's too many positives for me. So I actually don't use them anymore. It's kind of disappointing, but that's personal preference only. That being said, what do you guys use? What is your favorite one? Do you buy them online? Where do you buy them online from? I know some people go to Amazon for Wanfos. Like I said, the BFP brand I got from, I think it's Fairhaven is the company. I just bought them online. And the rest of the time I just go to the pharmacy to go pick them up. So where do you guys grab them from? What brand are you using? Do you like them? You know, do you have a hard time telling whether or not it's a positive or negative OPK? Let me know. And then don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week for another round of TTC Tuesdays. Thank you very much. Bye.